What's up, people? I am back for another video. Today we are starting our Superman journey, and we're going to be doing the Christopher Reeve movies. Not just those. I'm going to bite the bullet and review Superman Returns as much as I don't fucking want to do it, but kind of makes sense since I just did the Batman movies. Might as well do the Superman ones now. I kind of can't wait to get to Man of Steel, but this one is a good one too. Superman 78, the one that started it all. I would say this is the film that, when you think kind of modern superhero movies, this is the one. Especially origin story specifically. I love Spider-Man, the first one from 2002, but if you think about it, a lot of that blueprint comes from this movie. I mean, the way he gets his powers, they each have that scene when they test their powers and stuff. The big save scene. Granted, in Superman 78, it wasn't a montage per se, but it was like that compilation of him like just saving multiple people. Kind of had that in Spider-Man. Granted, in Spider-Man, it was more of a montage, but they do have that kind of scene, like very much is. So this movie is iconic. I mean, this is the movie that, that really showed you a man could fly. That's probably what I'm going to title this video, because that's what this movie was seen as. This is the movie that you really showed. Because you had the 1950s show with George Reeves, which was really good. I respect that show. Granted, it's from the 50s, so it's a little bit hokey. It's not the Superman I'm used to, but I get it. That was Superman at the time. And you even have the 40, I think it's 40s, the cartoon. So, but this is like the first one that really showed what Superman can do. And even that opening where you got the kid doing the narration, reading the comic, Action Comics. It's just very iconic. It's just so much of this film is great. I have a couple criticisms of, obviously, and I understand a lot of people love this movie, but I have to have criticisms. I've never really liked Gene Hackman as Lex, and it's not Gene Hackman himself, because I've seen him in other movies really show he could be a good Lex Luthor, like actual Lex Luthor from the comics. But in these movies, even in this one, he's just dumb rich dude, and he doesn't even have a Lex Corp. I don't feel like he's the smartest man ever. That's one of the whole points of Lex, is he's supposed to be uber intelligent, even at times outsmarting Supes. And I really don't get that here. The only scene you kind of see it is with the lead, when Superman finds the kryptonite. That's it. But the third act, just in general, I think falls apart. Lex's whole plan of like causing the falls with the missiles, stupid if you kind of think about it. So he can just get some real estate. I get it. It was the 70s, but that's not Lex to me. Lex is far more better than that. And I think Gene Hackman could play Lex. I've seen him in movies where he's played a villain, where I'm like, I could see Lex Luthor in there if they just let him be it. But I get it was the 1970s, so I'm not gonna fully fault the movie. But I am sorry. I just have to be honest. I know everyone likes to rag on Eisenberg, but I'm sorry. We almost only like Hackman because of the nostalgia. But if we're being real, he's not Lex Luthor. We have not really had a real live action Lex Luthor. The closest was the Smallville show. But it's like, I would have loved that Lex with an actual Superman in the suit. But really have not had a real Lex Luthor live action, in my opinion. But I love the stuff with Krypton. Even though it's not really comic accurate, the whole Chris, that's not Krypton. But I'm okay with it. It works for the movie. Jor-El's speech, the scene where he finds the crystal, jumping ahead, where he finds that green crystal, he goes to Krypton, or this Fortress of Solitude, and he hears the speech, from Jor-El about like what Superman needs to do with the man, and then he flies away as Superman. It is perfect. The movie is very good pacing too. I forgot how quick it is. Like, yeah, you have the little compilation of him, when he gets, after the Krypton section, you have the part where you see him grow up in Smallville for a little bit as a teenager. He gets his powers, and his father suffers a heart attack, and then you're pretty much in Metropolis. Oh, and the other criticism I have, and I understand some people really love this, I personally don't. I don't like bumbling Clark. I think they went too far with it, and especially when you're watching it, I'm like, when he can't even open a door, I'm like, okay. I get it. It's supposed to be like the juxtaposition, right? But to me, I've never liked that kind of style of Clark, even in the comics, because there are some comics that do that where they make him a bit more bubbling, so you can have that juxtaposition. I don't think you need to do that. I think you can have a little juxtaposition, like in the Snyder movie. That's actually how I look in it. That's probably how Clark was in specifically BBS, but like that is how I vision Clark. He's still a decent reporter, but he's just a little cheesy because he has that small town, almost if you want to call it like naivety. That's the Clark I'm okay with. Because like even in the animated series, he has that, but he's not bumbling. It's not like he can't just open a door. I think it probably worked at the time, but for me, just it does not age well for me. But everything else, the suit is so fucking iconic. Like when you think live action Superman suit is that suit. I love the BVS suit more for me personally because that's more like King Line with the comics, especially newer comics. But that suit, when you think like Superman suit, it is this one. Like the red S, the big bright S. It's homemade. And it looks good still to this day. And the music cues in this movie hit, man. That scene when he changes into Superman, he pulls you get the iconic where he pulls off the suit, you see the S under, and then he goes through the spinning doors, and then he flies up, and the music hits. The John Williams score is very iconic. I mean, even just in the opening, where you got the main opening score, is just it's chef's kiss. It's so whole. The moments you just see him saving cats and stopping robbers are just very wholesome. Granted, I've said this, I don't want an entire film of that. I do want to see Superman do punch stuff, but it is nice just seeing Superman do Superman things like that. There's a reason this movie caught a generation and why this movie's been like, if you're gonna say it, like the blueprint for this movie has been repeated. And a lot of origin stories. Maybe not. I wouldn't say it like specifically like more Spider-Man, even Iron Man a little bit. I feel like there's a little bit of that style of origin story. There'll be. I don't. R.I.P. Christopher Reeve, man. Like, I don't know if there'll be another. Henry Cavill is like the closest I think to like a Superman that's been like that. But Christopher Reeve, in a lot of people's eyes, is Superman. And I'm not gonna argue with them, man. There's a reason that this movie is still talked about to this day. I don't consider it perfect because I think I prefer Batman '89 over this movie, mainly just because I think part of it is I think Batman '89 has a better third act. I just think the third act in this, it's not terrible, but I have problems. I think that's mainly where it falls apart. And that's why one of the reasons I think I like Superman 2 a little bit more, but this is still iconic. And him flying around the Earth, I've always hated that. That's not a Superman power. That's the one thing I'll say. If I had if hot take, my big criticism of these movies, besides obviously Lex Luthor, is the random powers they would give him that just don't make sense. Like in the second one, he has the throwing ass that Family Guy has made fun of in a lot. I'm like, that was not a thing. Superman in was it 4 could randomly like he had telekinesis like because like Nuclear Man destroyed part of the Great Wall of China and Superman rebuilt it with like his eyes or something. It was like what the fuck? Like the random powers they would add. Like even this one in this movie, this flying around the Earth time. That's never been a thing. That has never been a thing. And also, I just think plot wise, it's just kind of. Granted, I will say the scene when he finds Lois and he starts screaming. If in terms of pure acting, that is Christopher Reeve's best acting scene in this movie, probably in these movies in general. The emotion you see it in his face when he starts screaming and he's like almost like crying. He's like, yeah, I really think he nails it. But then, yeah, the spinning around, flying around the yeah, but Yeah, like aside from that, I pretty much love everything else about this movie. Like, you know, this there's a reason that this is iconic. I'm trying to debate though with Superman 2 if we should do the Donner cut or we do the Lester cut. I haven't decided yet. I gotta see how long because I have seen the Donner cut. It's just been a long fucking time I've seen the Donner cut. Yeah, so we'll see. I'll debate it next week, but because the one thing in the second cut of the Donner cut, they have the fucking time, the spinning around scene again, and I don't think I like that. I prefer the ending in the theatrical, so I haven't decided yet if I'm gonna do the Donner cut or not. I might just watch it again just to watch it again. I just don't know if I'm gonna review that one or if I'm just gonna do the normal cut. But yeah, Superman 78 is if I had to rate it out of 10, honestly, I think an 8 out of 10. It fits. There's a reason this movie is still to this day is talked about. There's a reason this is one of the most beloved CBMs of all time. And this is the one that started it. Like this started, I would kind of call the modern CBM. The CBMs that we kind of know from since this movie came out. Because up until this point, they were kind of seen as a joke. This and then Batman '89. Unfortunately, obviously some of the Schumacher Batman movies been put a little harm in it in the later '90s, but very much this started though. So we wouldn't even got. I don't as much as I love Batman '89. If this film didn't do well, I don't think that we would have got Batman '89. So so anyway, but out of 10, yes, like I said, 8 out of 10. Next week we're gonna do Superman 2. I don't know if I'm gonna do a video later yet. I'm gonna be watching Heretic here at some point today. I don't know if I'm gonna review it because it looks like it's gonna be one of those movies I may have to watch twice before I review it. So I'm gonna review it. I still don't know if I'm gonna review it today. We'll see. I gotta see how it is. If it's really good, I feel like I need to talk about it. Then yeah, I'll just review it tonight. But if not, maybe later this week. I have an idea somewhat of what I'm doing this week. Tomorrow I'm gonna be doing Runaway, which I was supposed to do the other day. I just couldn't. So we're gonna do that tomorrow. So kind of a rare bad movie Monday. Tuesday I'm gonna do Batman Under the Red Hood. Wednesday and Thursday I don't know yet. Those are the only days I'm gonna think about what I'm gonna do. And then maybe Wednesday or something, I might rewatch Heretic again if it's really good. And then maybe we'll review that on Wednesday. And that's so Heretic potentially Wednesday, and either today or potentially Wednesday. Then Thursday, I don't know yet. And then Friday, I think I'm gonna try to do Superman 2 on Friday. Um, like I said, I'm debating on whether I'm gonna do the Richard Lester cut or if I'm gonna do the Donner cut. I might leaning Lester just because that's the one I've seen more. So granted, Donner cut does have much more like Lois and Clark stuff. Which, speaking of which, we didn't really talk about Margot Kidder. Hot take. I am sorry. I like her in this movie, but I don't really like her in any of the other ones. The problem I have, and I understand this was a thing in the comics where she didn't know Clark was Superman. I've never liked how shitty she treats Clark. I don't care if, because even in the animated series, she doesn't know he's Superman, but she treats Clark with a bit of respect. Yeah, she's in the first episode. Obviously, she's a little challenging to him, but that's more just because. So that part of it, that's not the part I'm talking about. It's like, oh, Clark, who cares? Like it's like that who cares aspect about it. But besides that, her chemistry with Christopher Reeve is there. I can understand why people do consider her the best Lois. It's just personally, she's not my favorite. My favorite live action Lois is actually hot take Terry Hatcher, man. Superman and Lois and Clark. Watching that earlier this year, she is like the closest we have gotten to a comic book accurate Lois. She's fast talking. That's always been kind of Lois. She's very much about her job. Yeah, you gonna be real. I'll say it. She's kind of bitchy. Lois has always had a bitchy attitude, but it's done in a way where she's still likable. She's not like, I think like it's like with dudes. You could be an asshole because a lot of like Spike, right? If you watch Buffy, he's kind of an asshole, but he's still likable. Deadpool. So I think the women equivalent is you could be is like where you have a little bit of bitch about you, but you're still likable. Because there's a way to, but I do think there's a way to do it. And it just goes too far where you're just flat out a bitch. You're just not likable. But I think Terry Hatcher had that right amount. That's because Lois always has a bit of a bitchy attitude. She stands up for herself. She's kind of always been, I don't want to use the me, but independent woman, right? But like in the actual way, not the fucking woke way. But yeah, and the scene where she's interviewing Clark, and then the scenes where they're flying when he takes her flying is one of the most iconic scenes ever. And the music that plays throughout those are actually some of my favorite moments in those movies when he's just flying with her, taking her flying. You know, granted, reality, I don't think he could do that, but whatever. I'm okay with those scenes. I kind of get why he couldn't really do those in the Snyder scenes, really. He did that. There's a couple times like he saves her and he lands, but he doesn't like take her flying like they do in these movies. And I saw some people complain about that, but I'm like, those are a bit more realistic. Superman, if you see in those movies, he flies far faster, the technology, so he's able to, like, you could show that, you know? So I kind of get why in those movies he doesn't do it, but yeah, this is really a great movie. So, Pin Down Podcast, subscribe to it. We just streamed last night. If you don't see the stream, it's only because I think we got partially blocked, but I think you should still be able to watch it though. But so yeah, subscribe to Pin Down Podcast, and yeah, let's get into Superman 78. Movie, I love this opening where you got like this kid narrating, and he's reading the Action Comics. You know, like the original, and it's like you got like that music, John Williams score starting to cue up. It is so good. And then they go into the opening, you know, intros, or that John Williams score. You know, don't get me wrong, I like Hans Zimmer. That's my favorite Superman score because, in my mind, I prefer a Superman score like that. But the John Williams one is goated. There is a reason. It's not one of my favorite John Williams scores. I do put a couple of other Williams scores above it, but it is iconic. There's a reason. It does feel good. You know, it's just nice and wholesome. That music starts playing and it just works. You know, especially the dun dun dun, that part of it. You know, and then just the build up. So we get to Krypton, and this is where, you know, Jor-El is telling him about, basically they sent in Zod, Non, and Ursa to the Phantom Zone, which I like the aesthetic of Krypton. I prefer the Man of Steel one more just because it's part of the comics. But I kind of get why they did this. It's almost stylized, and Marlon Brando really nails. He's not in this movie a lot. Like, he's kind of in a lot of the Krypton, which the Krypton section's not that long. You know, he warns about, like, kind of like in Man of Steel, you know, he warns about, like, Krypton and being in danger. That's very much a thing in Superman. Jor-El was always the one that warns the Council about the impending doom of Krypton. That's always been, you know, they did that in the animated series. A lot of comics did that. And it works. And I really do think you get a lot of Marlon Brando. And the way his speech is just hit. And then, yeah, so the Krypton gets destroyed, which looks really good. They send Clark, or Kal-El at the time, he wasn't Clark yet, to Earth, and that's where John and Martha Kent basically raise him. And then they see the infant list their truck, so John and Martha always knew he was an alien. They kept it a secret. And then you kind of jump ahead a little bit where he's basically an adult. Not an adult, but he's a teenager now. John has a fatal heart attack, which I guess we could talk about this. When I get to Man of Steel, I was one who did, and I still do, defend that Jonathan Kent scene. I know a lot of people hate it. It's very contested. I defend it, but I do kind of, in terms of preference, I do prefer Jonathan's death here. the whole fatal heart attack, it kind of shows even as Superman, he can't stop save everyone. But I feel like I still like the Man of Steel scene though. And I'll go more into that in that. And that's when they find the glowing green crystal from the ship, where he finds the Fortress of Solitude, and this is where he gets the speech from Jor-El and kind of tells him about his past and his home planet and why he was basically sent to Earth. And I love the part where he's like, the people they wish to be, like how good people, that people can be good, you know. Like this movie gets going pretty quick. Granted, it trains him for 12 years, but the sequence it doesn't. I get it. It was a movie, so he couldn't really fully show it. But obviously, there was a passage of time. 'Cause by the time he leaves, he's an adult now. But so when he leaves, yeah, he's an adult, and we see him leaving the Fortress of Solitude in his Superman suit. You don't get a uber good look at it, which I like. You don't get a good look at it until he finally suits up later on. Yeah, that's where he gets hired by the Daily Planet. It's where we meet Perry White, Lois Lane. We get the iconic scene where Lois is doing an interview on a helicopter, but something goes wrong, and the helicopter almost, falls over, and she's like hanging out of it. And that's when Clark sees her, and he changes into his suit. And the moment he suits up, and I love I'm gonna say he's a clearly a pimp, or he dresses a pimp. It was the '70s, so he even had like a pimp mobile. It was funny, and he's like, he like compliments him on his suit, and then Superman flies like, whoa! Like I love the reaction of everybody when they see Superman for the first time, and that music score when he saves Lois is iconic. It just very much like even the moment like he unbuttons his shirt and he pulls up the side and you see the S is like one of my favorite moments in a Superman anything is when he gets ready to save somebody. And then throughout the film he kind of or this little section he stops a robber, or he stops a couple robbers. He stops a robber who just managed to escape police and he got to a boat. He managed to stop those robbers. He stops a robber who was scaling a building, which I thought was pretty funny. And then he falls and Superman just saves him. And then arrests him, has the cop arrest him. And this Clark's drawn to Lois, and this is where we get the interview soon with him and Lois. And he reveals one of his weaknesses, that he can't see through lead. And while this is going on, Lex Luthor, that was the other problem I have with him in these movies. He constantly calls himself a criminal mastermind. I didn't love that. Lex Luthor would not call himself unironically a criminal mastermind. He's always kind of felt himself doing the right thing. And that was why I've always had my issues with Hackman's Lex. It's like, I felt like they sacrificed him being a good Lex so he could just make a dumb rich dude. If you remember Superman 3, the villain was just some random dumb rich dude. That was basically Lex Luthor in a lot of these movies. I love Hackman, and I do think he has good chemistry with Christopher Reeve. I just wish he played more like the Lex we know. Had a Lex Corp. And don't get me wrong, I like Miss Texmacher and Otis. I thought I like them as characters, but I do think they're too bumbling almost. And he plots to target San Andreas Fault targeted missiles. So basically, you can destroy it so they can make almost like new real estate. And because like one goes to, because he also has one to go to Hackensack. Basically, so he could almost like their other ones are almost like distractions, so he can have time to do his main plan. Which I do think the scene where he does cause is because Lois is also driving. Oh, okay, this movie is pretty quick, really. Like it goes. It's like, because that's where he gets the call because Lex Luthor has like if you know what a dog whistle is, something like the equivalent of that, where basically only Superman can hear it, and Lex tells him about his plan, and then Superman, because he wants to sink the Western U.S. and make it his own coastline, which just really, that's like a hokey plan. Even like for old movie standards, I'm like, that's very hokey. So he manages to, because he looks in the lead boxes, he can't see through lead, but unfortunately, kryptonite in it, which is this green rock. Um, and Miss Tessmacher helps Superman. This is after Lex and Otis left because she's concerned about his mother. So yeah, he manages to stop the one heading to New Jersey, but he unfortunately isn't making in time for the one that heads west, which several earthquakes. He has to save the Golden Gate Bridge and the Hoover Dam. He managed to put the dam together. Lois is doing an interview, and she obviously because of the earthquake, she falls in, and this is where she nearly dies. And this is where, in this version, that's where you get the really iconic cry scene, which I will admit that scene hits, man, when he does it. Like his react. Oh, he also saves Jimmy because Jimmy's at the Hoover Dam. Who I love Jimmy Olsen in these movies. If I had one criticism, I was okay. I didn't mind not having Jimmy in the Snyder movies, but I do think there was a good about having Jimmy. But I'm okay. I was okay with it. I just kind of wish we had him. But Lois is trapped, and we get the scene where Superman finds her, and he's distraught, and that cry, that almost war cry he lets out when he finds Lois, and then he flies because Jor-El warns he's not supposed to alter history, and he disregards it. He reverses time. Here's my problem, though. I've never loved that because it's not a Superman power. That's a Flash thing. I can see Flash doing that, not Superman. That whatever. It's fine. It works for the movie. Um, he manages to save the West Coast, throws Lex in jail, which a lot of 1 and 2 just kind of had that. That's one of the problems with the Lex too. He just gets thrown in jail every time. Like he's just a bumbling villain. That's not Lex Luthor to me. Lex Luthor is far more intelligent just to be thrown in jail. At least initially. And then we get. I do love though how these films end though, where he always just flies into space, and you have him winking at the camera, and then you go into the score in the end. There's a reason this movie is still beloved to this day. I just think third act falls apart a little bit, but I still love it. Christopher Reeve makes this movie, that suit, the score, those music cues, man, they really hit it right when they play that music. They don't just play it just to hit you in the feels. They play it when it actually needs to be played, right? And Christopher Reeve's performance, especially when he found Lois, um, when he fails to save Lois. Even though I don't love the time flying around Earth shit, I don't like that, but whatever, it's fine. Like I said, there's a couple things in this movie I don't like. Hackman's Lex, the bumbling Clark, which I didn't really talk about, but yeah, like the scenes where he first meets Lois, he's just kind of bumbling, and I get it, it's supposed to be in juxtaposition, but I think they could have did it without going a little too far on the opposite side. The scene couldn't open a door. I'm just like, okay, guys, that does not age well for me. But overall, man, I still love this movie. 8.5 out of 10. There's a reason we all still love this film. This film showed how a man could fly. It really did. Sorry you're fucking hearing car horns. Jesus fucking Christ. But this movie really did show that. Like, you really showed a man could fly. So, and it came out perfect timing. Apparently it came out like December of 78, which is perfect, like Christmas. It's not a Christmas movie per se, but it definitely, I can understand watching this at Christmas. It has those values. Oh my fucking God. Someone will not shut their fucking car up. Alright, I'm just gonna. Alright. Fucking finally. Anyway. Yeah, like. I really just think this movie is gonna will forever be beloved. This might be like the best of the. I don't know. I love Superman 2, especially General Zod, and you still have a lot of the qualities of this movie, but you also do get to see Superman actually punch things. Obviously, you're not gonna have the crazy effects like you did in Man of Steel, but that's understandable. It was in 1980 when that one came out, so. But overall, I love this movie, and I would definitely watch this again. Watching this and like Batman '89 are like perfect kind of movies to watch around the same time. And yeah, so that's really all I can say. Can't wait to do Superman 2 this week. Later today, I'm either gonna do a Strain Rant article. I'm gonna see if I can find one and or review Heretic. But other than that, guys, I'm gonna call it here. Subscribe to Pin Down Podcast, and yeah. But all right, talk to y'all later. Peace.